Hello, I am Mr. 23 and recently I had the privilege to be selected among other artists to take part in an incredible fan art challenge organized by Envato. For me, Arcane is one of the best animated movies that I have ever seen, starting from the animation, storytelling and all the way to the incredible music. For this fan art challenge, I choose to create a scene with my favorite character from the movie, which is Vi. I was impressed by a certain scene and I really hope that you already saw the movie, because otherwise this is a spoiler alert. So is the moment when Vi and Jace are fighting with Silco's Turbo Chemtank army. I must say that this fan art contest was the most challenging things that I have ever done since I discovered Photoshop many years ago. So because in this contest I will face some of the best artists in the world, like Imad Awan, Sunflake, Face Runner, Nemanja Sekulic, Panjul, and Create, I stress myself a lot to come up with a great concept also. And I really hope that you'll appreciate those 2 weeks that I invested in creating this fan art. So let's begin. From this cathedral I choose to use the top part, and I have added a Gaussian blur to blur everything. And then I have added a levels adjustment layer. Then I went to Envato and downloaded this pipeline because I wanted to build the industrial look. I use it here and then I duplicate it, and to those pipelines I have added a motion blur 28 pixel at a 35-degree angle, and added also a levels adjustment layer and made them really dark. And this is just a layer that I have created using a cloud brush, and then I set the blending mode to screen. Then again I went to Envato and I have used this 3D picture with the oil tower, and I have also rotated and used the desired angle. Place it here. Also I have added a bit of adjustments, levels adjustment layer. Then I have double click on the layer and added a color overlay, this dark blue color, gray color, and I have set the blending mode to color. And also I have added a Gaussian blur. Then also I have this picture from Envato, and I set the blending mode to screen, and also I have added a levels adjustment layer and I have made it a bit darker. Then in front I have used the brush tool, and I have manually added this gray fog in front of the tower, as I said, to create some depth. And then on the top I have added an exposure and made the top part really darker. And then on top of everything I have manually painted this blue color, and I have set the blending mode to color. Then I have used the same pipeline in front of everything, and I have also added a levels adjustment layer where I have decreased a lot the whites, and I also added a small motion blur. I wanted to have some cables on top of everything, and I went to Neostock and I have used some cables that they have to offer. You can use the links in the video description if you want to see those cables also. I have added a bit of curves, and I have increased a bit the black values to make them a bit gray, not that dark. After I have added the rest of the lights, I have added those highlights where I have used this layer set to linear dodge, and I have painted the reflections of the lights that I had into my design. Then I have also added a bit of fog in front of everything here, this gray dust or fog. And then on top of everything I have added a photo filter, and I used this bluish color. And now my design has this bluish tint everywhere. Then I have added those sparkles that I also have from Envato. Then I have set the blending mode to screen, and I have added a hue and saturation, and I have made them bluish. And I also added levels where I have decreased the whites. Then I have used also this picture from Envato as for the floor part, because I loved this bottom part, and I have used only the part with the floor, and I have copied here on the left a part of it to mask that area. And then with an exposure I have added a bit of darkness here on the top part, and with the curves I have decreased the lights by decreasing the black values. And then with a photo filter with the same color that I just used before, I have made the floor the same color as everything else. And here on the floor with the hue and saturation, so normally the hue and saturation was like that, this color, and I have added a mask to add a bit of mixing colors over there on the floor. This picture I have from Envato, and I have used it to build a fence So I just cut parts of this bridge to create my fence. So this is the fence that I have end up with after I cut up some parts, as I said, from this one. And then to this fence I have added a Gaussian blur. As you can see, now it's blurred. I have added a 2 pixel radius Gaussian blur. Then here on the floor I have used this. Then for the floor part I have cut this part of this picture, and then I have placed it here on the floor part, and I have used the transformation tool. If you hold Ctrl and drag the corners, you can add some perspective to the image. And I have added a 1 pixel radius Gaussian blur to this image, and also with the curves adjustment layer I have changed a bit the colors. Later on I have added this gas that comes out from this manhole cover. And then with the layer set to linear dodge I have painted some highlights on the fence part. After I finished with my characters, I needed some reflections on the ground, so I have added this green and this purple on the ground, and I have also double click on the layer and added the blend diff. So for the blend diff you should hold, normally it looks like that. If you look at my image you'll see the color really pronounced. So I drag this slider a bit to the right, and then I hold Alt and drag the right slider more to the right. On the left side I have used this part of the stairs because I wanted to have more elements over there. I have also this one from Envato. It's a 3D element, you can rotate it as much as you want. And I have placed, as I said, that part here on the left with the stairs. And to this one I have double click on the layer and I have added the color overlay with the blending mode set to color, and I have used this grayish blue color. And I have also added some field blur, and I have placed some pins here and there to add some blur. Then I have added the levels to make it darker, and then I have added this selective color adjustment layer with the layer set to color, and I have increased the cyan, magenta and yellow. Basically everything started with this robot, and I have rotated and I have adjusted the angle that I wanted. So after I downloaded it from Envato, I added a mask and mask this gun that it had. So this is how I started, and then it took me 1 day to finish it. Now I need to explain you in a few minutes the result, but until I decided what to do, as I said, took me 1 day long. So first of all I wanted to change the color, so I have added this hue and saturation. So those are the settings, and to this hue and saturation I have added a mask and mask the cables and the other metal parts that I wanted to have a bit of the original color. I had created a group, and to this group I have added the mask exactly like my robot, the future chemtank that I will create. So I have added some Adobe stock pictures with the rust, they look like that, and I have placed them inside that group, and then click on the layer and added that blend diff. As I said, hold Alt and drag the right slider to the right, and now my character has this rusty look. Right, and I have added some brightness and contrast to this group. I have added some shadows that will be the shadows later on for the elements that he will have here on the back, the battery pack and so on. So for the top part I have used this old diver suit, also from Envato. It's a 3D element, you can rotate it as much as you want. So I have used the top part with the head, and also this part that he has on the back. I have placed the old diving suit here, and I have added a mask and kept only that part, and I have added a bit of exposure that will have the role as a shadow over there. This element I also have from Envato. It's a sci-fi helmet. You can rotate it, as I said, and save the desired angle. I have placed it on top of the old diver suit, added a mask, kept only the front part. With the hue and saturation I have changed a bit the colors. I duplicate the layer with the diver and add it inside my helmet to have the same texture. So I have made it a bit bigger and move it inside, as I said, the helmet, and then again on the top part to fill it up. and with some adjustments. First of all with the hue and saturation, where I have decreased the saturation and the lightness. And then in the front I got rid of this bluish color and added the colors that I wanted. And then for the back part I have added this battery pack or whatever it is. I also have it from Envato. It's a 3D element. Inside it I did the same thing with a rusty image. I have added inside and cut some parts so it won't fill everything, because I wanted to have the glass visible. And then with a levels adjustment layer I made everything even darker. Then with a solid color adjustment layer I have used this color to fill the interior of that backpack that he has. With the hue and saturation I have added another color here on the top part, and I created somehow the liquid. With the levels adjustment layer I have decreased the brightness, and with the hue and saturation I have decreased a bit the saturation over there. And then inside I have used this picture that I also have from Envato. So I have added that bubble picture here, and I used the blend diff a bit to it. And then I have added the hue and saturation adjustment layer where I have used those settings, and I have set the blending mode to multiply. Then I have used this picture from Adobe Stock, and I have cut the parts that I didn't want by using a mask, and added another hue and saturation where I used those settings to match my colors. And after that, at the end, I have set the blending mode to multiply. After that I have added an exposure adjustment layer where I have used some parts as a reflection for the glass part, and I also added more reflections to imitate the glass look. And here on the top I wanted to connect that cable with the helmet, so I have used also this brass pipe from Envato, and I have used the warp tool and warp it out by moving some parts of it to have that angle. I have added a levels adjustment layer to match the brightness of the rest of the helmet parts, and then with the solid color adjustment layer I have manually drew those parts that you see with the green here on the legs and on the arm part on the left arm. And to this layer I double click, I have this inner glow on the left part and the top part, and this inner shadow on the bottom area. And then I repeated the process that I used here on the tank part, on the battery pack, and I have added that bubbles picture, and then another one, this one with water, and I matched the colors to have the same colors as the green liquid inside that container. Then I played again with the exposure and made it everything darker, and then with the solid color adjustment layer, so this one solid color, I have set it to linear dodge and paint it to have a bit of glow, as you can see here on the legs. Also I did the same thing with the solid color adjustment layer, and I used this color and added a bit of glow here on the back part, and even more. And then on top of everything I have added a selective color adjustment layer. In the front part, in the arm part, I have added also a sword that it's a 3D element also from Envato. So this one I have rotated and used the brush tool to cut it out a bit, and I have added the levels adjustment layer to make it a bit darker, and then a selective color to adjust a bit the colors. And the same image with the rust I have placed it inside, and with layer filled with 50% gray and set to soft light, I have painted with a black color to add those shadows. And then with a layer set to linear dodge and also the blend if applied. So as I said, normally if you don't apply the blend if, it looks like that, and if you hold Alt and drag the slider to the right, you can you know, decrease the intensity of that color. And here I wanted to connect this sword with the hand, so I have added some cables. I have used also the puppet warp to them, and I've moved the cables around, and I have also added another one. To these cables I have added the levels adjustment layer. Alright, and on the bottom area I have painted some shadows, and behind everything I have created some glow using a layer set to color dodge. So you create a new layer and you fill it with black and set it to color dodge, and then with the brush tool and the flow really low, like around 10%, if you paint, let's say here with this color, it will make that area glow. And in the back, if we paint with this color, as you can see here in the back, it will glow a bit that area. So this is what I did behind the chemtank. I have added a hue and saturation layer for the highlights and made everything a bit brighter by using a curves adjustment layer. And I have placed everything into one group, and to this group I have added more shadows using the method with the soft light. So if you don't know how to do this, let's quickly learn. You create a new layer from the top part, and then you set the blending mode to soft light and fill it with 50% gray. So now if I take the brush tool and the black color, if I paint, and this will make the dark parts even darker, this helps me to create volume to my images. And then for the highlights I have used my method with the linear dodge. So I have painted with the white color on the sides and everywhere using the linear dodge. So after I created the highlights on top of everything, I have added more highlights by using this time the color dodge. So the method is the same. You go on top, create a new layer, but you use color dodge and fill it with black. To this layer I'm doing the same thing. I'm painting on top of the already highlights that I created by using the linear dodge. So now if I paint, you'll see with the white color that it will emphasize my highlights even more, and I really love this technique. And here on this part I wanted to have a different color, so I have added hue and saturation adjustment layer, and now the liquid is separated from the other colors that I have. With the hue and saturation I made everything desaturated a bit more, and with the levels adjustment layer I added a bit of shadows over there. As for the Vi character, it took me a few days only to search the correct pictures, the correct parts of some pictures to use to create the Vi character. So I had to go to deposit photos to purchase this picture, and also this one to use some parts of the body as my Vi character. And I wasn't really satisfied with the result because it looked okay, but I really didn't like it that much. So as I said, this took me like 2 days to collect the images, and then I gave everything up. I went to CG Trader and bought this 3D model for my Vi character. So as I said, because I'm not really into Blender, this part took me a lot, like a few hours, because I wanted to have her somehow into this position. I went back to Blender and tried to move the parts as best I could do. So after a few hours of trying, my character looked like that. I export it and choose a certain angle, and because on the hands part we'll have those gauntlets, I cut off those parts from her hands, and yeah, I place her here into my design. So I added more shadows by using the dodge and burn, as I said, the soft light method, and with the levels I made everything even darker. And I don't know if people will notice, but I did it anyway. I placed the same tattoo that she has. Actually in the movie the tattoo is on the other side, but because I wanted to have the same tattoo, I placed it on this part of her neck. So for the gauntlets I used these robotic hands, so I have rotated them and used the desired angle into my artwork. So first of all was this one on her left arm and the other one here on the top, and now it looks like those fists, those gauntlets are from her body. I didn't really respect the movie that much here on the gauntlets part, but I try to make it as accurate as I could. So I have added some gems to the gauntlets, at least on this one, because here it wasn't that visible. So I have used this shield from Envato and I have rotated to many angles, and I here on this one, this part of a shield, I have used it here on top, and to the other one, this part from the same shield I rotated. So I have used this shield from Envato and I have rotated to many angles, and I saved the angles, as I said, as PNGs. I use a solid color to add that blue to my shields, to the gauntlets part, and also I changed the colors of the gems to have this blue color instead of the red. Then on the Vi character I have added a levels adjustment layer and I have made everything even darker. And coming back to the gauntlets, I have added the same levels to make them matching the rest of the colors. And with a selective color adjustment layer where I have modified the neutrals, I gave them something like a gold look. And with another selective color I have added a mask and masked some parts and kept only that blue. I have added more shadows by using that layer set to soft light, where I have painted with black. And on the head part I have manually drew some hair, and with the curves adjustment layer I have tried to match her colors with the rest of the image by modifying the red, the green and the blue. And I have placed everything into one group. And I have added the highlights with the linear dodge, as I said. The first highlights that I have added are some reflections. So here I have used the blend if. You see, without the blend if, if you look at it, doesn't really look that good. But those are the colors that I have used, and by holding Alt and dragging the slider, I adjusted the dispersion of those colors that I have used. Later, on top of it, I have added more highlights with the white color. And as I did here on the chem tank behind her, I added a bit of glow by using the color dodge adjustment layer, and now we have some glow that help us to differentiate her from the background. Then I have made some lights adjustments. So first thing that I did was that color dodge that I told you about. So I have painted with white on top of her, and I have added a bit of motion blur effect to the image. So this is how it looks. I explained that in the jellyfish video that I have in my channel. You need to use the pad blur. So be sure to watch that video to understand how to create this type of effect. And then on the hair part I added some white reflections, and with another color dodge I emphasized even more some parts of her body. And on the sword part I added some glows, some green glows here on the legs part and the sword. And then, because I wanted to have more cinematic look to the image and to create some depth, I added some parts of those elements that I also have from Envato. They are 3D elements, and I placed this part here on top, added a motion blur to it, and another one on front of it. So it's this one. As I said, they are all from Envato. Also, I have added a motion blur, and here on the left part, this one, I have used only a part of it, and I also used a Gaussian blur to it. Here on the bottom area I used the same picture, but I rotated it. You see, it's the same one, rotated, and added the same Gaussian blur. And to them I have added a levels adjustment layer to decrease the colors, and also a selective color to match the rest of the colors that I had. And then with the linear dodge method I have added the highlights on the pipelines. On the top I wanted to have something like an alarm, because in the movie that was the moment when the alarm sounded and all the chem tanks appeared. And I have added this red warning light, added curves adjustment layer and made it darker, and added a bit of highlights. And on a layer filled with black and set to color dodge I have painted with some red color to add that red light on the right part. Here on this cable I wanted something like electricity cable with something like a thunder that simulates the electricity. So as I said many times in this video, this took me a few days, a few weeks actually to finish, and now I need to speed everything so you can understand it in 20 to 30 minutes how I created everything, and I hope that will help you in your future artworks. And here on the right side I forgot to tell you that I have added some smoke. So I have added this greenish smoke image on the right side, and after I have finished with everything, it was the moment for the camera raw filter. So press Ctrl Shift and I to create a screenshot from everything that you have on the screen. After that, right click and convert it to a smart object. Now you can go to filter and choose camera raw filter. Those are the settings that I have used in the camera raw filter, and also on the detail I have played a bit with the settings, and at the end I have added some grain to the image, because that helps my image to integrate all the elements that I have over there. Then on top of everything, after I finish with the camera raw filter, I have added some rays that are coming from the roof with the optics plugin. You can find the link to download it in my video description. On top of everything, I have added those particles. Normally the layer look like that. With the particles, I have added a mask and set the blending mode to screen. Then I have added brightness and contrast to add more brightness and more contrast. Then with the color lookup, I change a bit the colors, so I have used the foggy night and the opacity 20%. I have added some lights reflection on the ground that come from all over the place, and then another brightness and contrast to add more contrast. Hue and saturation, where I have decreased the saturation because I thought that everything is too saturated. This, my friends, was my entry for the Arcane Fan Art Challenge. I am sure that the other artists created masterpieces, and I hope that you will find my artwork up to the challenge also. Please let me know in the comments what do you think about it. At the end, I would like to thank Envato for believing in me and my art.